All right, YouTube. Capriles has called upon the Venezuelan military to take sides in the struggle between Maduro, the runner-up to Hugo Chavez, the head socialist of Venezuela, the former bus driver. Between him and, let's face it, everybody else in Venezuela other than the military, who's already dead set against Maduro. I mean, it's gotten to the point where I have to imagine a lot of people who honestly do like socialism appear to understand that there's some sort of problem with it, that it's not just working at the moment, and they're joining anti-government protests in Venezuela by the hundreds of thousands. Now, the police are already sparring with protesters. Literally, as we speak, order is beginning to break down in the state of Venezuela. It is happening very fast. Not only are we getting reports, people are eating their pets because they're starving. That's it's unfortunate, but now the riots and looting have begun anew. Protests are expanding. The police are already clashing with people. The Venezuelan military should think good, long, and hard about whether their nation will even continue to exist for another month if they don't get rid of Maduro. Now, what they could do is literally just say, some rogue general, Venezuelan, in the region where Maduro happens to inhabit, in their capital, could say, fuck this, and, fire off a couple rounds at Maduro's palace, and just fucking break in and slice his head off in front of a crowd of scared bureaucrats. That would probably be the best thing to do. Just get rid of Maduro. You don't need a trial at this point. You don't need international whatever. Just fucking waste him. Say, oh, he drew a gun on me and I blew him away because he's a fucktard. And then once he's gone, a lot of his allies will conspicuously disappear. They'll be too busy flying away to escape the wrath of the people. Just beat down the police in Venezuela. Make it clear the military will fire upon them if they oppress the protesters. Let the protesters have their time to trash your fucking Capitol buildings for a little while. Then say, okay, that's enough. And put the legislature in charge of forming some sort of contingency to actually take Venezuela out of the socialist dark ages so people can start to eat. And you're going to have to use international support to do this. Venezuela, it would take too long, I think, at this point. With how few rations are apparently left in the country, you get like empty stores everywhere. There's not even enough time necessarily to simply stabilize things and rebuild your economy. More people will starve in the interim, but that will cause more chaos, and then even the military won't be able to control the situation. They're going to have to get handouts from foreign states. But the thing is, if socialism is crushed in Venezuela, the United States would be more than willing, even Obama, who's a total retard, would be more than willing to ship aid to the state of Venezuela. No strings attached. It wouldn't be a situation of, oh, here's food, give us oil. I mean, right now oil's basically worthless anyway, so it's not a big problem. It would basically be, here's food so you can stabilize your government. By the way, you didn't fucking hate the Venezuelan people. Chavez was just a fucking liar, and so was this other retard that was in charge. And that's true. To anybody from Venezuela, I know I've had Venezuelan viewers. I thought I'd be like blocked in Venezuela for going on tirades against socialism. Apparently I'm not. Maybe people are using proxies or something. To anyone in Venezuela, I don't have a problem with anybody in Venezuela. I don't know anybody that does. The only problem anybody here has is we look on in astonishment, really, that the people of Venezuela wouldn't have already hanged Maduro off of a tree for letting so many people people are murdering each other over a bag of fucking flour. People are supposedly eating their pets. Maybe somebody can confirm if this has happened at all. There's no food. The Venezuelan economy is basically wrecked, and now the police are beating people and dragging them off to gulags for not producing anything when they don't have the raw materials to do so. If that were to happen here, the government already would have collapsed. It would have taken a single weekend for that to happen. In Venezuela, though, we see this crisis over months and months keeps getting worse and worse, and Maduro appears to have held on to power only through coercion. That is, telling people big bad U.S. did something to fuck up our economy. The U.S. didn't do but fuck anything to the Venezuelan economy. And through violence, which is essentially, oh, by the way, if you don't like the government, that's fine, but if you protest, we're dragging you off to a gulag somewhere. No, the Venezuelan military absolutely should side with the legislature there. They've got a legally binding referendum. It's constitutional for them to do what they're doing. And honestly, the U.S. at this point, with oil prices the way they are, doesn't even have anything to gain by overthrowing Maduro. But what I think the average American, what we don't want to see is that in this hemisphere, we're used to seeing like starvation and panic and riots and stuff in Africa or in parts of Asia. But when it begins to happen in this hemisphere, it makes people a little bit nervous. Now, I can imagine it also makes the Colombians nervous about refugees streaming across the border. It probably makes those in Guyana a little bit nervous because Maduro said, oh, well, maybe we'll invade Guyana at some point here. You know, he doesn't have the capability anymore because where's he going to get the manpower from? People are too emaciated at this point, I think, to do anything. You've got babies dying in the hospital because it's like there's no air conditioning. There's no sanitation. There's like no gloves, no thermometer, no pills or anything. At what point do people just snap and say the government is no longer legitimate? That's sort of what we did here when this country was first founded, because the British government, which was in control at the time, was just being stupid. They weren't listening to the colonists, and they were upping taxes for no reason. And there was the whole pine tree deal where they said, oh, well, these trees belong to the king, so you can't log them, even though you need raw material. You'll have to go like 5 miles out of your way to log a fucking tree. And that's sort of what happened. And then they tried to disarm people, and it didn't go over so well. In Venezuela, though, I would think at some point when people are starving and don't even have like their asthma medication, that's probably time to begin revolting. And I know Maduro made a big show, I guess, a few days ago. Oh, we got better loan deals from China. Now the Indians are going to give us food for oil or something. Can't you see they're the ones that are actually taking advantage of your misery to exploit you? The BRICS countries, the ones that Maduro is sort of a partner of. You know, he likes the Russians, the Chinese or whatever. They're the ones that are going to take your oil and give you pennies on the dollar in response. You could be selling that oil at a market price. If Maduro had invested the money from oil extraction in the beginning, you wouldn't have this problem. You'd have so many more units of oil that even at the low cost that it is, you'd still at least be kind of breaking even. Your currency wouldn't be worth its weight in toilet paper. So the Venezuelan people, instead of protesting, they should simply overrun the police, beat them down for a change, and then go grab Maduro. What the fuck's the military going to do at that point? They're not going to step in and try to restore order until things boil over. So like a Libyan deal all over again, only this time the person getting fucked up and sodomized with a stick and then summarily shot in the head actually deserves to be, whereas Gaddafi actually attempted to do well by his people. Maduro doesn't care about your misery as long as he has cigars from Cuba and vodka from Russia and some Chinese bullshit gold import or something. And you'll probably find that Maduro has a lot more luxury than he lets on to the people. He can come out in his socialist tracksuit and say, well, I was a bus driver, so I'm just a humble folk, and I sort of live in an average home. No, he doesn't. He's probably got a basement full of gold and silver and stuff because he's been grafting your economy for several years. And it's a situation where the economic model being used doesn't work. That's why I say we've got to avoid that bull crap here. We can't endorse socialism even if we don't have a monocultured economy. Long term, it won't work. It'll work longer. People will feel better in the short term. Ultimately, it'll collapse the economy far worse down the road. Then you have absolute hell to pay. And that's the problem. We're a nuclear state. We can't afford to do that. Neither can any other nuclear state. We just can't afford the kind of risk that associates with this sort of thing. Look at what happened to the USSR. It fucked them up. Now they're a rusted out shell of their former self. That doesn't need to happen here. It shouldn't be happening anywhere in the American continent. We should be protecting the Venezuelan people. If their authoritarian dictator in chief is refusing to listen to the legal dictates of his own nation's constitution, then we should probably have a couple fucking cruisers idling offshore in case all hell breaks loose. Not to attack the Venezuelans, but to get rid of Maduro as fast as possible, to let the legislature do their legal duty there, to guarantee the rights of the people of Venezuela. Yeah, we should liberate Venezuela of Maduro if it gets to the point where people are eating each other or Maduro's just, gassing people in the streets or something. And I wouldn't put it past him. He's a fucking tyrant. But ideally, the Venezuelan people will snap before that is necessary. They'll say, no, we're not going to start eating our relatives. We're going to chain up Maduro, and we're going to eat the flesh off his bones instead, because he fucking deserves it for the misery he's unleashed upon his own people. That's about all. Peace out.